The State Department says the regime's WMD program, including its missiles, defy UN Security Council resolutions. President Moon Jaein is chairing a National Security Council meeting and is set for a cabinet meeting on the ongoing Ulchi Taegeuk Exercises. Plus, South Korea's football stars of the future notched their first win. At the Under-20 World Cup in Poland, they take down South Africa 1-0. So let's start with a decision by the US Treasury Department to keep South Korea on a watch list for currency manipulation. According to the department's report released on Tuesday, 9 countries, including China, were included on the monitoring list. It means the US will pay close attention to South Korea's currency practices and macroeconomic policies. Countries that meet 2 of the 3 criteria are placed on the watch list. Those criteria include a trade surplus of at least $20 billion with the US, a current account surplus that is at least 2% of GDP, and persistent intervention in foreign exchange markets. The report says Seoul only met 1 criteria, the current account surplus, and emphasized it would remove South Korea from the watch list if the condition remains the same at the time of the next report. President Moon Jaein is discussing projects and progress on the new Ulchi Taegeuk Exercise with his cabinet today. According to the top office, the meeting at the Blue House includes the defense, foreign and unification ministers, the presidential national security advisor and the director of the National Intelligence Service. The exercise is a civilian military drill combining 2 existing ones, the Ulchi exercise, part of the previous South Korea-US Ulchi Freedom Guardian exercise, and the Taegeuk Command Post exercise led by the South Korean military. The 4-day drill aims to prepare the country against war, terrorism and natural disasters and ends this Thursday. Just ahead of the meeting, the president also presided over the National Security Council meeting to examine the exercise. Now, the US State Department says North Korea's weapons of mass destruction program conflicts with UN Security Council resolutions. This comes amid an apparent difference of opinion between US President Donald Trump and his national security advisor over the regime's recent firing of short-range missiles. Our Kim Hyo-sun takes a closer look at what the mixed messages could mean.
The U.S. State Department has confirmed the entirety of North Korea's WMD program is in conflict with UN Security Council resolutions. Addressing questions on the North's firing of short-range projectiles on May 9th, State Department spokeswoman Morgan Ortagus also stressed that Washington is focused on continuing negotiations with the regime to bring a peaceful end to the North's WMD program. The remarks come as she had been asked to clarify the State Department's position after President Trump appeared to have contradicted his national security advisor over the North's latest launch. During his joint press conference with Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe in Tokyo on Monday, Trump downplayed the firing, saying the North's leader wanted to, quote, get attention. An expert says President Trump is sending out 2 different messages to North Korean leader Kim Jong-un.
I think what Trump is trying to do is 2 things. The first thing is to signal to Kim that diplomacy is still in play, that he still wants to negotiate, and I think he still wants to have a 3rd summit. But at the same time, he's also saying to Kim that short-range ballistic missile tests are not going to dethrone that diplomacy.
As President Trump has also expressed optimism for future dialogue with Kim Jong-un, there is hope the 2 could meet soon for what would be their 3rd summit. Kim Hyo-sun, Arirang News.
Now, it appears a high-level North Korean official is in Beijing. He was spotted arriving at the Beijing Capital International Airport on Tuesday and taking a VIP car into the Chinese capital. The unidentified official was veiled by security staff holding black umbrellas. Vehicles from the North Korean embassy were also seen surrounding the airport. To a reporter's question about the trip, China's foreign ministry wouldn't offer any details. The ministry spokesperson merely said North Korea and China continue to be on visiting terms as friendly neighbors. The North state-run Korean Central News Agency reported that a delegation led by Rim Kwang Eung, who is head of the General Administration of Civil Aviation, left Pyongyang Tuesday, leading to speculation they were the ones being ushered out of the airport. Now, imagine having to pay bribes to someone just to live day to day. Well, that's the horrific reality facing many North Korean citizens, according to a newly released report by the United Nations. Lee Seung-jae reports.
In an eye-opening report released on Tuesday that further peels back the appalling layers of corruption in the regime, UN Human Rights Chief Michelle Bachelet revealed that North Koreans are forced to pay bribes to officials in order to survive.
The report we have released is based on 214 first-hand accounts from people who managed to escape from the DPRK. They describe how their most fundamental rights to food, to water, to health, shelter, work, freedom of movement are violated, and how access to this universal right depends primarily on their ability to bribe state officials.
Bachelet says officials extort money from everyday citizens who struggle to make ends meet, even threatening them with detention and prosecution, especially those working in the informal economy. According to the report, bribes are usually in the form of cash or cigarettes, so that citizens don't have to report to state-assigned jobs where they receive no salary, hence allowing them to earn income in rudimentary markets. The report adds that others bribe border guards to cross into China, where women and girls are vulnerable to trafficking into forced marriages or the sex trade. North Korea denies the findings in the report, saying it's a political-motivated hit job against the regime. It instead pins blame on UN sanctions that create a dire humanitarian situation for North Korean citizens. However, Bachelet says the regime should clamp down on corrupt officials and allow its people the freedom of movement within the country and abroad. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Now, North Korea's mortality rate due to air pollution has dropped compared to a couple of years ago, but is still extremely high. The World Health Organization says North Korea's mortality rate due to poor air quality currently stands at over 207 out of 100,000 people per year. That's the rate 10 times higher than South Korea. China was 113 and Mongolia 156 per 100,000 people per year. The WHO says poor air quality can cause stroke, heart disease, lung cancer, as well as a number of other serious ailments. North Korea's tuberculosis rate is the 6th highest in the world. Now, South Korea's global competitiveness ranking slid one pace this year. The International Institute for Management Development, a research group based in Switzerland, said in its annual report Wednesday that South Korea ranked 28th out of 63 countries surveyed. Out of the 4 key categories, Korea saw its government efficiency, infrastructure and economic performance fall from the previous year. Korea's economic performance dropped 7 spots on year, ranking 27th. But Korea's business efficiency jumped 9 places to 34th, thanks to improved management and entrepreneurship. Singapore, that was ranked number 1, followed by Hong Kong and the US. China ranked 14th and Japan 30th. South Korean companies' business outlook for May has fallen slightly compared to the month before. According to the Bank of Korea, the Business Survey Index for all industries recorded 73 for May, down a single point on month. The central bank says business sentiment from electronics companies showed slightly better sentiment on rising smartphone demand and the weakening Korean won, which lowers Korean goods export prices. Construction companies' sentiment, that went up on increasing construction projects. The outlook for June also fell. The figure for May is below 100, meaning there are more pessimists than optimists. Switching gears now to some sports, and after losing their first group match against Portugal at the Under-20 World Cup last weekend, the pressure was on South Korea in their second match against South Africa on Tuesday night. They played in the host nation of Poland. Fortunately, the South Korean squad had enough in the tank to win the game 1-0. After a scoreless first 45 minutes, the South Korean side went for it in the second half, finally breaking the deadlock in the 68th minute thanks to a header by defender Kim Hyun-woo. Now, this win gives South Korea 3 points in Group F. After 2 matches, their next match is against Argentina on Friday evening local time. Now, with the European elections firmly behind us now, it's time for the power players to start deciding who will be the next leader of the powerful European Commission. For more on this and other news from around the world, let's turn to our Hong Yu. So EU leaders, they're all gathered in Brussels for an EU summit. Have they been discussing who will take one of Europe's most powerful political positions?
Well, Mark, regarding the leaders' preferences for the top EU position, there's no clear front-runner. Whoever gets the position is considered the leader of the EU because the European Commission is executive arm of the 28-nation bloc. EU leaders can propose candidates, and for a candidate to get the nod, a majority of the 751 members of European Parliament have to approve the choice when it assumes power in July. The President of the European Commission has the power to propose EU laws and enforce them. Let's take a look at who they think should replace Jean-Claude Juncker.
Mr. Barnier, Mr. Timmermans, and many others have these competencies. But I don't want to have a debate on names. I want to have a debate on projects, on priorities, and on criteria.
Naturally, coming from a grand coalition, I support and am in favor of Manfred Weber, but not all parties do. But despite this, the Spitzenkandidat is very important.
Preferences are even more splintered this year as the European Parliament is fragmented, with 2 major centrist blocs losing their majority and nationalists and Greens picking up their seats. The conditions are expected to negotiations to pick a consensus nominee for president of the Commission more difficult. The new Commission president will take office on November 1st, along with the new European Council president, European Central Bank president, and EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs. China's telecom company Huawei maintained its spot as the world's second-largest smartphone vendor in the first quarter of this year, before it was blacklisted by the Trump administration. Citing research and advisory firm Gartner, Reuters reported that the growth could be limited in the near future, especially when it loses access to Google's applications and services. Despite a decline in smartphone sales worldwide, Huawei achieved a 15.7% market share, selling over 58 million smartphones globally. Samsung Electronics easily retained its top spot with a 19.2% market share. Apple was third with 11.9%. One schoolgirl and a 39-year-old man have been killed in the attack by a knife-wielding man who attacked students at a bus stop in Kawasaki City, just outside Tokyo. 17 others, including girls between the ages of 6 and 12, were wounded. They were attacked by a middle-aged man while waiting to board their school bus.
Due to this brutal act, innocent children and parents who have raised their children with much love have been harmed. We feel extreme anger and the deepest of sorrows.
The suspect died of a self-inflicted wound to his neck. The motive for the attack remains unclear. MacKenzie Bezos, ex-wife of the Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, has pledged to give away half her fortune to charity just months after finalizing her divorce. The divorce left her with a fortune estimated at $36.6 billion, making her the 22nd richest person in the world on the Bloomberg Billionaires Index. MacKenzie Bezos announced on Tuesday that she signed the Giving Pledge, a campaign to get the ultra-wealthy to pledge half the fortune to charity, saying she had a disproportionate amount of money to share. Jeff Bezos tweeted his support for his ex-wife, saying he is proud of her and that she will be amazing in helping those less fortunate than her.
Time now for our Life and Info segment, where we focus on information that we really hope is useful for your day-to-day life. Today, we're going to focus on food, which I'm sure we can all agree is something we all enjoy talking about and particularly eating, of course. For that, we have our Kim Dami in the studio with us. So, Dami, I'm guessing we're talking about Korean food today. So what do you have for us?
Right. Mark, I would love to talk about all the different kinds of food that exist potentially on this earth, but today I'll be focusing on Korean street food.
Okay.
So food, apparently including South Korean street food, is what entices foreigners to South Korea and potentially brings them back.
Right, well that's very interesting because a lot of the time we hear that foreigners like to come here for the shopping, which is great of course, but there's this trend more and more with overseas visitors wanting to try all the different food options there are here as well.
Right, so shopping was actually the most enjoyed, satisfying activity to do among foreigners in South Korea up until 2017. But starting last year, 2018, the so-called foodie tours topped the chart. And actually, foreign tourist interest in these foodie tours has been gradually increasing, but that number actually jumped sharply from 2017 to 2018, reaching almost 30%. And now you're probably wondering what kind of street food foreigners go crazy for. So I traveled to the most popular spots, I'm sure you know, Myeongdong. And of course, a Korean rice cake, tteokbokki, fried dumplings, and fish cake with warm, flavorful broth are classic Korean street food. And these are the dishes that locals, including myself, enjoy. For me, it's, to be honest, my go-to comfort food.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, and even though tteokbokki is normally spicy, foreigners seem to really enjoy that unique chewiness and that hint of spiciness.
Great food. It's so simple. It's very clean and very tasty. A bit spicy, but really great. The dumplings, beef barbecue, and other things that I don't know how to name because I just bought them because I like them.
Okay, so she seems to like the tteokbokki then, as well as some of the mandu, the dumplings.
Right,
there.
That she can't name.
Yeah, it's funny because many foreigners who come here are often surprised by the spiciness of the food. As a general rule of thumb, perhaps if you pick the dark red tteokbokki, that's going to be generally more spicy than the lighter one. But I noticed that Korean street food has really broadened its scope because, to be honest, a few years back I did tend to find it a bit samey. You know, there wasn't that much to choose from. It was all kind of the same thing. But now you can get a bit of everything you want, right?
Exactly. So from traditional to modern, Korean street food seems to satisfy all taste buds. And of course, it's not too hard to find traditional Korean street foods, including Korean pancakes known as buchimge and jeon. And while I was waiting in line to get some jeon, I bumped into another jeon lover from Spain.
It's really good. I love seafood, so I really like it. It's one of my favorite Korean foods. I love japchae, yeah, and then Korean barbecue. It's my favorite three things. I think it's so different to my food, to Spanish food. Yeah, so everyone comes here for shopping and for food. My friend was coming for shopping, I was coming for food. Yeah.
And of course, Korean fried chicken, 닭강정, is another must-have snack. A bite-sized boneless chicken with Korean sweet and spicy sauce has such a flavorful crunch like no other chicken. And the crispy chicken and juicy meat sums up Korean-style fried chicken. Korean hot dogs are another beloved street snack for locals and foreigners alike. They are similar to American-style corn dogs, except the sausage is completely inside a fried batter. It's coated with sugar and full of cheese, and you can make it even better with your favorite sauce like ketchup and mustard.
Yeah, I'm a little bit baffled why Korean people like the sugar on Those hot dogs.
Who doesn't like sugar?
Well, I like sugar, but
Yeah?
not on a sausage-based
Oh, come
snack.
on. Have you tried it?
Of course.
Okay.
But I always ask for them to leave the sugar off. And but yeah, those are tasty snacks for sure. Don't let me put you off having sugar on it. But now let's talk about another important point, which we all want to talk about, which is the price. We all know that street food is generally cheap anywhere you go in the world, but especially so here in South Korea. You can fill your stomach pretty nicely for a few dollars. So how much should visitors from overseas, perhaps they're watching now, how much should they expect to shell out if they go to one of these food stalls?
So like you say, Korean street food dishes are pretty affordable, even for those who are on tight budgets. So prices range from 3,000 won, $3 to even $15. That's 15,000 won in Korean won.
So what kind of food are you paying $15 for on the street?
Oh, okay. So
maybe we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, I'll save it for later. How about I save it for later?
Okay.
Yeah, so even if you're short on cash after hitting the shops, don't you worry. Most options won't put too much of a dent in your wallet, considering many are very filling, like you said, perfect for a quick bite.
There's just a variety, and it's nice and quick and cheap and easy. Yeah, that's about it.
We have nothing like this where we come from. We come from Sweden. Yeah, it was 5,000 per dish, which seems like reasonable. It seems fair, and I think it's affordable, and it's definitely worth it. If you're in Korea, you gotta come here.
But you can also be fancy if you like you mentioned. The most expensive, luxurious dish I was able to find was grilled lobster with cheese. How about that?
Sounds good.
I know. So after all the traditional Korean food, it was quite interesting to see foreigners enjoying lobster in the middle of the street. So lots of options for everyone, including vegetarians out there. But please be aware that you'll need to bring cash with you, as few, if any, street food stalls accept card payments. They rarely, if ever, have card processing machines on hand.
Yeah.
And as the sun goes down, street food becomes the perfect side dish to have with some beer and soju at these Korean street bars called 포장마차. So if you're looking for a cozy, chill atmosphere to enjoy some night culture here in South Korea, I recommend 종로 3가, which is also very accessible by subway.
So that's where you hang out then, is it?
This weekend I will.
Okay, well, good to hear. But it's really good that Korean food is continuing to develop. Street food is still cheap. Everyone can enjoy it. It genuinely is tasty if you find the right spots.
Oh, of course.
At least once you find your favorite place, you generally go back there again.
Lots of options.
Yeah. One tip I would have as a non-Korean person is it's best to have at least a little bit of Korean skills with you, because a lot of the time the vendors don't particularly speak that much English. You can always point, of course, but it's always easier to get your point across if you can at least speak a bit of Korean.
Right, and use your fingers.
Use your fingers and know what kind of food you're ordering, but generally it all is delicious. Dami, I'm feeling very, very hungry right now. Thank you for coming in and wetting my taste buds. I hope to see you again in the studio soon. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Good morning. A chilly start will lead into a warm and sunny afternoon. Early morning temperatures in the low teens will climb to the mid to upper 20s, and especially in Gyeongsang-do provinces, which will see wide gaps of nearly or more than 20 degrees Celsius. Air quality will be normal across much of the country. UV rays will be very high though in the afternoon, and ozone levels will reach high levels in most areas. So it's going to be another bright day with cloudless skies. Daily highs in most parts will be in the mid to upper 20s this afternoon. And we will wrap up May with promising weather conditions. Then things will get a bit warmer as we head into June. That's Korea for you, and here's the international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, that's where we're going to have to leave it on this Wednesday morning here in Seoul. Do stay tuned to us on Arirang TV. We'll have our next newscast. That's at noon Korea time with our very own Lee Ji-yoon. So until then, goodbye.
Following the Inter-Korean summits and the North Korea-US summits, a journey toward peace on the Korean peninsula has become inevitable. 2019 will see countless twists and turns in negotiations as all parties involved work to build peace and search for a winning solution. Peace and Prosperity will explore paths to find these resolutions with a special emphasis on the expected role of Seoul. Peace and